Hey everyone, just want to encourage you to find us on your listening platform and give us a rating. Anywhere you listen to that has a rating system, go on over and give us a rating and maybe leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts. These ratings really do help. Thank you so much for listening. On to this week's episode. Rolando and Eddie.
Hey.
Yo.
How do you guys measure, and by what metrics do you, after watching a movie, say that was a good movie or that was a bad movie?
Good question. I think for me, a bad movie is a movie in which I walk away. That's usually my main metric. I think if I can
walk in the middle of it. Don't even let it finish.
I don't even let it finish. If I don't finish the movie, I have given up on the movie. And that doesn't happen often, right? So I often don't think many movies are so bad. Whether or not it's the movie I will revisit, that might also be indicative of whether or not I think a movie is good or bad, despite the fact that I have said many times on the podcast I don't like to revisit movies. But if the movie leaves me wanting to one day go back and revisit it, I think that's a good sign too. Yeah, those are weird metrics, but those are what I tend to go by.
Okay, so for you, it's kind of like basic entertainment. If it's not entertaining enough and you want to just walk away from the movie, that's like the key thing as to what's good and bad?
Yes, I would say. I think,
okay,
if I could walk away either feeling some kind of way or really thinking about what I just experienced, that tends to be a good sign for a film.
Okay, got it. Eddie, what about you?
Yeah, what about you, Eddie?
I guess how the movie engages me emotionally, different levels. Like when we walk in a movie, most of the time we know like it's gonna be a comedy, it's gonna be a drama, it's gonna be entertaining sci-fi of some sort. So we have those we set ourselves up for whatever those expectations are, and where we're surprised when something moves us deeper. And what would make it bad, I guess, is just feeling like totally like disconnected from the story, from the characters, from like the whole movie experience is uncomfortable for me.
Do you often feel like you've wasted your time watching a movie?
It depends on the movie.
But like, is that indicative of a good or bad movie for you?
Well, like Hope Floats, that rom-com, or maybe just romance with Sandra Bullock. And
I don't know where you're going with this, but go on.
It's that was a movie where I was like, this is a stupid movie. I really don't like this movie at all. This is
okay.
Yeah, it's like
okay.
Don't like this movie at all. Requiem for a Dream, I thought was incredible, but I will never watch that movie again. Never watch that movie. That movie took me to a dark space and did not leave my imagination for quite some time.
That could be. That's so the not leaving your imagination for quite some time might be a good sign for.
No, it is. I'm just saying that there's some movies that I would not revisit because of the emotional impact that it has left on me.
My metric is not necessarily a good metric, and I think that's a valid point actually. What you're bringing up right now. Yeah. I heard you groan, Nicole, for Requiem for a Dream. What's your beef?
I do not like that filmmaker, Darren Aronofsky. I feel like he's a snuff filmmaker. I think he likes to actually take pleasure in torturing people, and that, he has like Requiem for a Dream. Drugs are bad, and I'm going to show you over and over and over again in horrific detail for 2 hours just how drugs are bad, to the point where it's preaching and it's self-righteous.
I don't know if it was. I think it was just. I mean, I don't disagree with you about
personally
the snuff.
Well, I don't, because his objective is to make you to feel uncomfortable and to bother you and to get under your nails. He's almost like an edgelord filmmaker.
But what about The Fountain? I don't think there was any snuff in The Fountain.
No, so some of his movies aren't like that. The Wrestler is okay, but
I actually like The Wrestler. I think that's a good movie.
I think that might be my favorite of his, even though it is pretty. It's pretty miserable of a film.
It objectifies the hell out of that beautiful. Marissa Tomei.
Marissa Tomei. Oh, she's great in it. Yeah, I love her.
She's so good at it. She's so, like, I am a gay man, and I will say it's just like, I understand the appeal of this.
She's
woman.
hot. She's hot. But it's interesting because I agree with all of you when it comes to what makes a bad movie in terms of my personal metric. But a big one for me, and I think my top tier, is if whether or not I feel like this is a a basic film. Like, have I seen it before? Is this doing anything new or interesting or uniquely? And if I feel like I'm just watching like a template movie that, just I can't even tell if who made it, if the filmmaker like even cared that they made this film, if it was inspired or not, that to me, if it's boring, if it's uninspired, if it's just like copy and paste from a bunch of other movies and does nothing new, that is more so a bad movie. Like, people think Showgirls is a bad movie, and I completely disagree with that because I've never seen anything like Showgirls, and it has a style, and I actually think it has something really interesting and wonderful to say and uniquely done. So it's crazy because people say Showgirls is a bad movie, and I completely disagree with that.
I don't know Showgirls enough to like say it's a good or it's a. I mean, it's.
But
it
you know
has
the
a following.
reputation. You know the
yeah,
reputation. Yeah.
No,
So.
I don't know. It has some pretty bad acting in it though, in retrospect.
But that's actually, you haven't seen the movie, but two, the movie is incredibly hyperbolic, right? It's supposed to be over the top. And Paul Verhoeven has even said, like, that's how he directed Elizabeth Berkley. He
directed her to be so ridiculous.
Yeah, he took credit for her acting.
I saw the sex scene in the pool, for example. That was provided, just flailing about like a fish.
I know. So actually, that's a movie that's a direct contrast to a Darren Aronofsky movie, and I'll take that approach to a movie any day other than Darren Aronofsky.
So I actually agree with you. I don't think that's a great example of movies that are quote unquote bad, but I still would consider them good. For me, I've always said this. Norbit comes to mind. White Chicks. These are movies that are by no means are they like art, but they are thoroughly entertaining, and I will sit down and those are movies I will rewatch because they're just comedies and funny.
Comedies are different too, and every genre should be taken differently. We shouldn't judge like Tar the same way we judge Norbert.
Right. But the thing that you mentioned though was a copy and paste thing. If the movie doesn't have like a style, or if it doesn't feel like, that's a hard thing to accomplish nowadays. I feel when we have just so much content out there that I don't know. Maybe I have a different metric because of that. Like I say, it's just like because
well, I would agree, and that's also why I feel very turned off by a lot of media today because it all feels very similar. It's hard for me to differentiate certain ones. So when things come out that are so different, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, I'm like, wow, what a great movie. Like, how unique, how inspired is this film? And it like, yeah, I thought so. I mean, it wasn't my favorite movie of the year, but I'm actually really glad that it won Best Picture. I mean, what a movie to win Best Picture as opposed to last year Coda, which was a respectable choice, but was it the best movie?
I don't know. I think that would, like, after we saw it, I think we saw it before the Oscars, right?
We did.
I 100% was just like, look, it's feel-goodery. I don't know if it's going to win because it was a long shot, but I think that movie was good. That was just that movie made me feel.
Yeah.
And
I thought, but yes, I love this conversation. We're getting really out of hand with our cold open today. Cold is a great movie, but in terms of, I guess, like, all the different metrics of what makes a good movie, and for me and how I define it, like for me, that was more so Power of the Dog than Coda. I thought that although it was very emotional and feel good, I don't think it clicked every single thing. Like I have seen that movie before. I saw the French version of that movie. Whereas Power of the Dog is a very unique film. But the French one was so different
in terms of tone. Like, you realize, like, oh, you can make this story and you can make it like emotionally impactful rather than kind of making fun of the disabled community.
I think we got to put a pinch in this and get into it because
how is this all related to?
How is this related to Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1 and the new Hulu 8-part series? I guess stay tuned to find out. I am Nicole.
And I'm Rolando.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals,
an original podcast
about unoriginality. So let's make a quick left turn and let's talk about the Oscars that just happened. I briefly mentioned that Everything Everywhere All at Once not only won Best Picture, it almost did a clean sweep of all the big awards. So it won Best Original Screenplay, Film Editing, Directing, Supporting Actress and Actor, and Actress. I mean, very few movies have done that in the history of the Oscars.
didn't win Best Actor though. Supporting actor.
It didn't
yes,
win
right.
Best Actor.
That went
Had
to
it
Brendan
won,
Fraser.
yeah, had it won Best Actor, it would have really.
Why wasn't this gentleman nominated for Best Actor? He was the lead actor.
Because I think he was still actually a supporting role. Like, just because he was the next, like, he was the male lead, doesn't mean he was a lead.
I don't know, because I would say he would. I don't know. I feel like he should have been classified as a male lead. He was a important. Granted, he's not the main character, but he was the main the main male character.
Yeah, but just because he's the male main character doesn't mean he was a lead of the film. Like, I actually think he was appropriately put in supporting.
Okay. I thought he should have. In retrospect, I think I thought he should have gotten Best Actor because he was present just as much. Not as much as Michelle Yeoh, but but, like, he was still present. Like he had like because he hit. I mean, the scene that goes back to Car One.
What?
What is the scene outside the movie theater, right?
Yeah.
Like that scene where like when he says it's like, oh, I wish, in another life I could have a laundromat with you and stuff. It's just like that just gets to the heart. And it's just because outside of, because actually I also make the argument that Stephanie Hsu should have gotten.
Yes.
I think she should have 100%
over. Agree with over Jamie Lee Curtis.
If we're going to give it to someone from that film, it should have been Jamie Lee Curtis. Her. I think it should have been, in my opinion, Angela Bassett, but that's just me.
Yeah, I was expecting Angela Bassett to win, but
she looked so mad. She looked like racism.
Yeah, all of a sudden Jamie Lee Curtis got all this momentum, and when I was watching the Oscars and they had like the small blurbs from everyone, when Stephanie Hsu's part came up, I got emotional because it made me remember how impactful her performance was as that character, just in that little 10-second blurb. And
she was so good.
She was so good. So when it went to Jamie Lee Curtis, it was devastating. Did you guys see that Poker Face episode she was in? She was so good in that too.
Yes. Yeah, she was. That was
that was so good.
That was a really good episode. Guys, if you haven't seen Poker Face, please do, and then DM us, and we'll talk about it then. That show is easily one of my favorites of the year. Right? It's been a strong year for like television, in my opinion, for streaming. And like Poker Face easily is one of the top shows so far of this year. Yeah, so good. But another one that really got a lot was All Quiet on the Western Front, which we covered on this podcast. It was kind of looking like it was going to sweep, for a while there. There was like consecutive awards where it won in production design. I think it won in makeup and hairstyling. And then, no, that was Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. I'm sorry. That makes sense. Like,
but it won best.
Look at the fashion.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. But then it won best score.
I don't remember liking the music.
Yeah, because it was just really repetitive, and I don't know. I was kind of upset that happened, but Top Gun Maverick won Best Sound. Avatar: The Way of Water won Visual Effects. So a lot of the films that we covered did win some awards. I actually do think, though, maybe Top Gun Maverick should have won Best Picture. In my opinion, no way. It saved the film industry. None of these other films can say that. Okay. You think by that alone it should have won? Because it was a good film. If it was good and it was a important film of this year because of what it did for the film industry as a whole. Got it. That's why I think it should have gotten the award. I don't know. I haven't seen Tar, so I can't speak to it. I haven't seen the Triangle of Sadness because for me, I think for some reason that title makes me think of, like, no offense, Nicole, but like sad lesbians. Is that what Triangle of Sadness are you implying that I myself am a sad lesbian, so I would take offense to that statement? I am offended. I feel like I was just painting broadly lesbians on that one. Triangle of Sadness. That's interesting. Why triangles remind you of lesbians? Like what? Certain lady parts when we were little kids? No, you never. Oh my god. Okay. I'm glad we come to mind that quickly for you. Yeah, I mean, Triangle of Sadness won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, but it hasn't really, resonated with American audiences as well, I think, as with European audiences. And even All Quiet on the Western Front, I don't know. Like, people aren't really talking about that movie. I don't know many people who have seen it and who want to talk about it.
You think it's because it's a Netflix movie? Actually, I have friends who don't want to see it because they're like, oh, why? The original one was so good. I'm just like, guys, but this is like from the point of view of an actual German, and that matters.
It does matter. Historical context. It does matter. I mean, for the historical context, it matters. For the overall film, not necessarily, because I think the original was better.
Oh, that's so funny. I actually think the remake, I enjoyed the remake more so than the original. Well, yes. I think the original one is good. I think I just enjoyed the remake better, and that's only because of my contemporary sensibilities.
Yeah, I think that I don't actually think it brings anything new or more interesting than the original film did. I think it's actually a little bit more repetitive, personally. But you know what? Let's leave that aside. Let's actually start getting into today's topic, because I think we're already at like 20 minutes. We're really getting into the history of the cinema here. So how do you guys feel about Mel Brooks?
I like some of his stuff. Spaceballs comes to mind.
Okay.
What else? Dracula, Dead and Loving It.
Dead and Loving It.
Another
Young Frankenstein.
Oh, I have never seen Young Frankenstein.
Oh boy.
Shame on
you.
me,
Have
right?
Eddie?
I hear it's good. Is that the one that also features the guy from Everybody Loves Raymond, right? Brad Garrett as Frankenstein?
No, Peter Boyle. Yes, Peter Boyle.
Peter Boyle. He's in Young Frankenstein. That's right. That's his big. Can you believe he's the only actor out of that cast who never won a Emmy? And I think that's such a curse.
I can believe it. Well, I've never really watched that show.
Well, that show is so good. I don't care what people say. That show is so good. It still holds up. Like, I sometimes will watch reruns of it. I'm just like, this show is brilliant. I feel like Eddie doesn't like to watch it because it may hit too close to home. What with the mother-in-law living downstairs from us, you know.
Yeah, Blazing Saddles, the producers.
Blazing Saddles, I enjoyed
the original, and
I never saw the original producers. I did see the remake, which is based off of the musical, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so he hasn't made that many movies. So actually, you haven't seen a good amount. Never mind.
I saw 3 so far.
Yeah, that's not a lot. I mean, you haven't seen Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddles. I think his two.
No. I said I've seen Blazing Saddles. I like Blazing Saddles.
Oh, wow. Really? Do you?
Yeah. You don't?
I love Blazing Saddles. I don't think you would love.
I like Blazing Saddles, and because I don't like westerns.
Yeah.
I like it for the social commentary.
Got it. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Wokeism in the house.
So Mel Brooks was pretty ubiquitous in terms of comedy in the 70s, especially after the release of Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, both in the year of 1974. I mean, 2 huge films, and he was kind of like the top guy when it came to comedy. After that, he made a movie called Silent Movie, which was a pretty successful comedic spoof of silent movies. And then he did a movie called High Anxiety, which was his spoof of Hitchcock movies. And
I think I may have seen High Anxiety.
He's the lead. Cloris Leachman is like the evil nurse. Again, Harvey Korman's in it. Madeline Kahn is in it too, but a little. So like the whole regulars that he has are in it. And then after High Anxiety, it was History of the World. So he also established himself as like the major kind of, not really satire, like parody guy.
Parody. Yes. That is the apropos word to describe his style of comedy.
Yes. And then after History of the World, he made a remake of To Be or Not to Be, and then he didn't do things as much. Like he did Spaceballs in '87, Robin Hood in 1991. You know, so he's nowadays he's very classic. Like I don't know if too many people like millennials are singing the praises of Mel Brooks, but like he's now I think is referred to as a very classic filmmaker, and he's kind of. He's aged. Let's just say his type of comedy, I think, has seen some aging.
Yeah.
There isn't this like timeless quality to it. It's like say Charlie Chaplin films have.
Do you really think that Charlie Chaplin films are timeless?
Yes, I do.
I will never sit and watch a Charlie Chaplin film. I'll tell you that much.
That's because it's black and white, and you hate watching black and white movies.
And
I know plenty of people who would.
No, your community is a niche community, Nicole. No offense on that one.
No, just
I
because
promise you.
no. Oh my god,
Oh my god, you know what? We're gonna make a TikTok video one day of us going to Times Square and like picking people off the street and be like, "Will you watch a Charlie Chaplin film?" And we'll see who wins. It's gonna be a blind study. I promise you, I will win.
I think more people are open to older movies than you are. I think that you are actually, no offense, a pretty close-minded viewer.
I don't disagree with that. I am a very close-minded viewer.
Like, I don't think everyone's as close-minded as you. I mean, I think some people are, but they tend to be, like 15 years old.
I also disagree with you on that one. I think most viewers are just as, I would argue, maybe even more close-minded than me.
This is where we need people to chime in. Guys, come on, email us, respond on social media, whatever it takes. Let us know your thoughts on this.
No, because the people who listen to this podcast are also people who are very open-minded on film.
So you're gonna lose
on the response rate from within our own podcast.
Okay, so Mel Brooks, like I said, very classic, kind of has aged, doesn't have this like kind of timeless quality to it. And if you were to think of another, I don't know, film other than Charlie Chaplin that is a bit older but maybe not in black and white, let's think of Airplane. Do you consider that to be classic?
Airplane is a classic.
And do you consider that humor to be timeless?
Airplane is a movie that I will still I would rewatch.
There you go. Okay, so that's a good contemporary.
Who made that one? That wasn't Leslie.
That's the Zucker brothers. That's David Zucker and then Jim Abram. And
I know that Leslie Neeson was the lead.
Yeah, the Zucker brothers went on to make Top Secret, The Naked Gun. Some, I think, of the funniest movies ever made. So History of the World. Top Secret is actually, I think, one of their. You know what? We're getting really off track. So, like I said, History of the World Part 1. It came out in 1981. This was directed, written, and produced by Mel Brooks, and you could very much say that this was an ego-driven project because, unlike some of his earlier films, he is pretty much front and center here. He is in almost every single vignette that he displays, and he's often the lead. He's not just a supporting role. Like, he's not even in Young Frankenstein. He's a very minor role in Blazing Saddles. He's one of the leads in Silent Movie. He's the lead in High Anxiety, even though it's more of an ensemble piece. But then here, it's like the Mel Brooks show. And I also think it's one of the reasons why this movie doesn't work that well. So
you sound be careful there, treading that anti-Semitic line, I think.
Yeah, and it's especially because he's Jewish, right? That's what I said. So, like, he spoofed silent movies, spoofed westerns, spoofed Hitchcock. This is him spoofing epic movies and sword and sandal kind of movies, or just like the period drama films.
Were they a big thing going on in the 80s?
Yeah, so in the 80s, actually, you do have like this revival of the sword and sandal, kind of like what we talked about when we talked about Willow. There was also Excalibur, there was Legend, even Dark Crystal, like all of these kind of fantasy sword and sandal, Conan the Barbarian. These kind of movies,
fantasy. These are like kind of like
so in that respect, but it's also like a very specific type of fantasy. It's not like the future. It's kind of like a medieval, parallel past. But movies like Ben-Hur, the Ten Commandments, that was huge 20 years prior to making this movie. So it's kind of like people who grew up during that time, just like westerns. People who grew up watching westerns could finally see a spoof of it. But it was closer to that movie than it is now. Like, they don't really make epics like this anymore. So it starts off with the Stone Age, which is kind of mocking 2001: A Space Odyssey. Right. And it goes into
pretentious.
Yeah. Then it goes. It's not my favorite Kubrick movie, so I'll let that pass. Then it goes into the Old Testament, and then it goes into the Roman Empire, which I think is probably the longest vignette.
Which I think is too long.
Too long. I would agree with that.
Absolutely too long.
Yes. Then it does a little musical number of the Spanish Inquisition, which I think is probably one of the best vignettes of the film.
I actually did like the musical number, but again, I thought it went too long.
Yes. And then
cut that in half easily.
Absolutely. I do agree with you. And the last one being the French Revolution, and to me being the most cringy of them all. It's all just a bunch of vignettes narrated by Orson Welles. And again, at the forefront of most of them is Mel Brooks himself. So what did you think was the best vignette?
Honestly, I like the Old Testament one.
With the 15 commandments.
The 15 I mean, that's a funny joke, right? Like 15 commandments, boom.
Oh,
10 commandments. I got the
Yeah.
10 commandments here.
Yeah. And then that's it.
Because that's a short skit that works because all it is just a voice and Moses
Mhm.
at Mount Sinai, you know. So that's like, it's a short skit. It works. I actually also did enjoy the Stone Age skit. My favorite part being like the first heterosexual marriage, followed by the first homosexual marriage. And I'm thinking it's just like, oh wow, there were homosexual marriages happening in the 80s. Who? Don't let the Republicans find out, guys.
Yeah, well, this is right when Reagan took office, so
makes sense.
It was the beginning of.
He saw this movie. And he's just like, not on my watch.
Yeah, so the Stone Age one, I don't know if this is like, again, this is why I said, is it timeless? Because maybe in 1981 when this came out, people were laughing out loud, but I did not laugh out loud.
You didn't laugh out loud?
Very much during, I think maybe like twice during
what
this movie.
You didn't laugh when all those cavemen were just masturbating as the sun rose?
Yeah.
I did.
No.
I thought it was funny. What about when they discover music?
No.
I actually think the first two skits are easily the strongest ones, in my opinion.
So for me, the Spanish Inquisition is good, but again, I do agree that it's too long. I've seen this movie before, so maybe that has impacted my viewing upon it. Like, you know, I remember most of it. Madeline Kahn made me laugh out loud when we first meet her, and she's like, "Please, everybody, step on the same foot," like something like that.
Who was she?
She wasn't the Vestal Virgin. She was like Caesar's wife.
Oh, okay, like the Empress.
Yeah.
You
don't know Madeline Kahn?
No.
Okay. That was her.
Not by name or something. Maybe stuff I've seen her in.
And then Spike Milligan in the French Revolution is pretty much like the crazy locked up dad who thinks the birds are alive. And he was like throwing them out the window. See, now that I thought was funny. But other than that, like, I don't know, just so much of it kind of fell flat for me.
So it did. This movie did feel like watching like a bad SNL episode. Yeah. I won't disagree with you on that. I actually, because when we talked about covering this, I remember you had asked me, had I seen it before? I'm like, yes, I've seen it before. And now I just didn't remember the context of which I had seen it before.
What was it?
Because back in the day when we had cable, you know how there was like the TV Guide channel and it tells you like what's on TV?
Mm-hmm.
And it will give you sometimes on the channel, like the movie, sometimes it'll give you star ratings. And I remember History of the World had 1 star out of, I think, 4 or 5. And that caught my attention because I'm just like, wow, I've never seen a 1-star rated movie on this on my TV Guide channel. Let me check it out. And I started watching it, but I don't remember finishing it. And I had to watch it for the podcast. And I was just like, maybe I didn't finish it because I don't remember the musical number or the French Revolution. And I probably did give up during that Roman Empire one because it was so long and I don't think it was going anywhere.
Yeah. And even like the Last Supper joke wasn't that funny.
It wasn't.
Yeah,
it was
like
kind of a bummer.
It almost was like trying too hard to be funny for me. And that's the thing, like I don't want to say that it's just because it's old, you know, and sometimes when you watch comedies, you really have to watch them with other people to like see, you know, if I watch this with like 5 other people who thought it was funny, I would find it funny. But I laugh by myself when I'm watching Blazing Saddles or High Anxiety or some of his other films. So I was kind of shocked by just how not funny it was. And then when it got to the French Revolution, and here's the thing that always I have to realize this about Mel Brooks, is that he's just really creepy and perverted in his movies.
You think he's a creep?
I kind of think he is because so many of the jokes that he also gives himself have to do with him being a predator to women. Like,
there were some very sexually aggressive jokes in this film. I will agree with you on that. Yes, especially
in the French Revolution. And then he always, like, you know, and then when he starts putting himself in the movies, he gets to the girls. Like his character in Blazing Saddles is this idiot governor who just wants to, you know, fuck all day with this hot chick whose boobs are like hanging out of her bra. So it's like always based on like this gross sexual humor, which like I'm sure other white straight men find hilarious, but as a female viewer, I'm like, this is gross. And again, like when they're playing chess in the French Revolution, and then it turns into a gang rape. It's like, how is this funny? How is this funny? You know, and then like
he sends
his whole like, it's good to be king is every time he takes advantage of a woman. Like it's gross. So it's my least favorite thing about him that I've kind of have to like come to terms with when I watch his films. I'm like, wow, he really thinks that this is funny. And I don't like when, you know, men think that is, I don't think it's funny.
Well, you know, he's a man of a certain age is all I can say, right?
Yes. I mean, jokes like that will happen, but like even in like Airplane, like there's not that many moments like that. Like the humor isn't like to degrading of women's bodies or anything like that, you know? Like The Naked Gun, like when they make fun of that love story between him and Priscilla Presley, none of it is like towards her. Like they're both kind of evenly just being buffoons, you know? Yeah, so
that's fair.
In contemporaries, it's not always that. It's like, it's kind of something he does. It's almost like, so like, I don't know, like something you would see in Animal House or Porky's or something that's just so heavily geared to men.
Aren't those movies of this time?
Yeah, those are all contemporaries of the film.
I remember
too.
I used to watch Porky's a lot because I was expecting like male nudity, and boy was I disappointed. Again, I thank TV Guide channel for that.
Well, there you go. So TV Guide is just vastly disappointing.
Yeah, it's truly. Anyone remember TV Guide channel, guys? Like, it was my favorite channel to watch as a kid. Sometimes
it was good. It was good. Yeah, yeah. Like, ooh. Instead of committing to something. But you know, it's interesting. Even though we opened the show with saying, "What's a bad movie?" Now, I don't know if I would say this is a bad movie, but I would say it's not a good movie.
I would say it is probably a forgettable movie.
It is, and that is actually to me, like that's pretty much saying it's a bad movie. If it is a forgettable movie, like that can't be good.
I will 100% agree with you on that. I do think that if a movie is forgettable, is a bad sign. And you are probably not a good movie. Because even a terrible movie that made me feel miserable, at least it made me feel something.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah,
I can hate a movie and that does it. Yeah, I think it's a shitty movie, but guess what? I will never forget it. A movie that comes to mind is one I saw with my buddies for this movie nightclub that we were having. It was called The Greasy Strangler. And this movie is absolutely abominable, absolute garbage, but I will never forget it. As much as I will, it will always haunt me.
Wow, look at that. And you could even say that Requiem for a Dream, like Eddie brought up, does kind of fit that mold, you know? But A History of the World...
You're here. I'm kidding, guys.
Womp womp. But yeah, A History of the World could kind of fit that, you know? Because like that's the thing. I can't even like bring up so many jokes, like the jokes that
the 15 commandments. We just went over this.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I can only remember a handful. Like, I don't know, something that was really funny. I could probably remember most of the movie, like in fucking Airplane or something. So
you don't remember B. Arthur was there?
I do remember now that you brought it up that B. Arthur was there. I don't remember what she said. She was like, "Oh, you're a you're a schlub or something." When he tried to say he was a stand-up philosopher.
Right. What was it? There was she's like paying off welfare checks, basically.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Because comedians don't make money.
He's like, well, did you kill anyone? No. All right, one more week. If you don't kill someone, we can't give you your welfare check.
Yeah. Hilarious.
I thought it was. Just to see B. Arthur.
Yes, it was nice to see B. Arthur. And it was great to see Madeline Kahn, and that's probably why I laughed with her, but even Madeline Kahn couldn't save the movie for me. At the end of the movie, there are previews of History of the World Part 2, in which there is a Viking funeral, there's Hitler on ice, and then Jews in space. And Jews in space pretty much becomes Spaceballs. But yeah, we never got History of the World Part 2, you know, until now.
Which apparently there was no intention of ever making a History of the World Part 2.
Yeah, I think that like maybe it was like an idea and then he just completely disregarded it. And it was kind of funny that there was a preview for a movie that like is never going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
But now there is a History of the World Part 2. And how they did it was that they made it an 8-part limited series, which debuted on Hulu. And they did 2 episodes per night for a whole week, or at least 4 days a week. And they have a lot of famous comedians involved for this. The main ones being Wanda Sykes, Nick Kroll, and Ike Barinholtz.
Yep.
And Mel Brooks is somewhat involved. He's the narrator.
He is the narrator.
And he introed it.
Let me tell you, when I saw him on TikTok announcing History of the World Part 2, my initial reaction was just like, Mel Brooks is still alive? Like, I could not believe it. I genuinely thought he had died like some decade ago. Because
it is pretty, yeah.
It's an old man in History of the World Part 1, and that was 81.
He wasn't that old.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what deal with the devil he has made, but
I know. No, he's still kicking it, alive and kicking. So yeah, 8-part series, and they kind of go all over the place. So like the original History of the World Part 1, it's Stone Age, it's the Roman Empire, era. It's the Spanish Inquisition, and then it's French Revolution, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Here, it's like, okay, we're going to go back and forth between many different time periods. And some of the time periods are the Civil War, the Russian Revolution, cave women, William Shakespeare, Richard Nixon, and Shirley Chisholm. Yeah. Alexander Graham Bell. So like we keep going back and forth constantly, although there's our main ones, most of the ones I already named. Kama Sutra has like a brief one, right?
Kama Sutra, right? Yeah.
And so most of the people that I named are present in most of these skits, like Nick Kroll, Wanda Sykes, and Ike Barinholtz. But then we get like little cameos, like Danny DeVito, shows up in the Russian Revolution. I think so does Jack Black.
Who, by the way, Jack Black, I think stole the show in his skit as Joseph Stalin.
Yeah, no,
I thought he was so good. And I forget how crazy talented Jack Black is. Like, he's one of those stars that I don't think of often, but when I see him, I'm just like, oh god, you're funny. True star power. Like,
yeah,
he's
no,
supposed to be one of the nicest guys,
Oh, that's great. That's always such a plus. Yeah. So, did you like this?
It passed the time. I saw like several episodes in a row, and I wasn't anxious to like kind of get over it. You know what I mean? Is it my favorite show? No, but I think there were some skits that were stronger than others, and I think there were some stand-up comedians that stood out more so than others. I think Wanda Sykes playing Shirley Chisholm was one of my favorite skits, because that one not only I thought was funny, like kind of being of that like 1970s comedy or 60s comedy, right? But it was also informative. I learned I did not know about the first Black congresswoman. I didn't know that she also made a run for president, So I thought that was exciting and like kind of entertaining, because I didn't know that. Like, I'm not a good history student.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So.
And I feel like that's what I should be doing when I watch something called History of the World. Learning something. Give me like a magic school bus moment.
Okay. So there's a metric for you. So you're actually being educated, which is part of the reason why you like it.
Which I didn't have to be, but it's nice to. It's a nice bonus.
Nice to have it. Yeah. Okay. So I did not like this at all. At all. Wow. I think the one thing that I maybe liked was Josh Gad as Shakespeare.
Okay, really?
Portraying him as an ego maniac who everyone tiptoed around. Yeah.
I mean, I liked Josh Gad as Shakespeare. I don't know if it was my favorite skit at the moment.
I found it to be remarkably not funny.
Skit itself?
And all of it.
Okay.
I thought Shirley Chisholm, though it was educational, and that's a plus, wasn't funny. I thought that I could do a better Richard Nixon than the guy who was on that fucking show, first of all. I like the Kama Sutra one. I was like, man, Kamal, he's so funny. Why am I not laughing?
That one was a little bit of a drag, because he is funny. And that skit was kind of just really not.
No, it wasn't. And you said it best when you were talking about the first film, which is it felt like a Saturday Night Live skit, and where Saturday Night Live skits work very simply. You tell a joke, and then you tell it over and over and over and over again for 5 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You beat a fucking dead horse.
Mm-hmm.
You look at any skit of theirs, that's what they do. So that's kind of what this show does with all of its skits, except it drags it out for even longer. And there's no live studio audience there encouraging you to laugh along with them. So it becomes really painful. Like the 5-minute Kama Sutra one was fine because it was 5 minutes. We keep returning constantly to some of these skits, and like the Ulysses S. Grant being an alcoholic and, you know, trying to get along with Robert in the Civil War, and like all the different elements, it just never really worked for me. The Romanoffs, every time we go to Anastasia being an influencer was not very funny.
Hang on. I actually think the Anastasia as an influencer was brilliant. The Russian
idea was clever.
No, was it funny? The Russian Revolution one is actually one of the skits that every time we kept going to it, I kept laughing. I actually thought that was one of the funniest skits. Okay. That's where
I personally didn't find it
comes.
Funny.
But also Nick Kroll is probably his strongest in those skits.
I see.
Yeah. And I have found myself to be more of a fan of Nick Kroll in like the last few years because of watching Big Mouth and like his comedy special with John Mulaney.
Okay.
So I found myself like liking Nick Kroll's, and I think those skits were funny, having that hot Jewish the guy he was also in like in Poker Face, right? He's from Riverdale.
Oh, right.
The racer. As his
mm-hmm.
son, who, you know, his ripped ass falling in love with Anastasia. Funny. I did not know who was playing Schmuck's wife, but I thought she was good also.
Yeah,
I thought it was for a while. I thought it was Leah Remini. It is not.
No.
But I was just like, it's not Janine Garofalo either.
Oh my gosh, that's who I thought it was.
I thought it was Janine Garofalo. It's not Janine Garofalo. I looked her up and it was not. It's someone I have not heard of. But I thought she was great. So those skits were some of my favorite skits. Yeah, I did like the Russian Revolution. I mean, come on, Anastasia, like.
I mean, again, like it's a clever idea, but was it actually funny? That's the thing. Like,
did you
appreciate the idea, but am I laughing?
Did you find anything funny here? I'm curious.
I chuckled, and there were like moments that were like similar to a Saturday Night Live skit. Like, oh, I can see the humor, to it. You know, some of these actors as comedians do stand out. They do kind of have like Wanda Sykes. You could just watch her just do. Make mayonnaise and you know you're gonna laugh. You know, and but there are other parts that were just like, oh, okay, you know, let's move on from this.
Nick Kroll as Judas, did no one laugh?
I love that one actually.
The Curb Your Enthusiasm one.
Yeah, like Curb Your Judaism one. I think it was like that's what it was called.
Yeah, Curb Your Judaism.
Yes, that's what it was. And
I thought that was a great take on Judas.
I thought that's another Nick Kroll strong performance. But you know, having Jay Ellis as Jesus, this cool, sexy Jesus, I thought was also something funny that we kept seeing. The woman who played Mary, I used to see her in the Wayans Brothers. She was a security officer. I thought, oh my God, I haven't seen her in so long, and I'm so glad she's back as Mary, no less. So there, like. I only saw a handful of episodes, and the handful of episodes that I saw, some of the skits, when I liked them, I liked them. When I did not like them, I did not like them.
Well, that's the thing. Like, overall, I think this is going to be a very forgettable series for me. I didn't really find, like, anything funny. Like, I'm looking at the list right now in front of me, like, Alexander Graham Bell getting a crank called.
That was corny. That was
not very skit. Funny. I don't know. Like, the Noah's Ark with Seth Rogen. Not very funny.
Come on, yeah. Of course we love that with the pugs.
The pugs is cute, but like, you know, these things, like, that's the thing. Like, okay, it has redeeming qualities. Like, it educates me about Shirley Chisholm. Has cute pugs. Is it funny? No.
I don't know. I actually do think the Noah's Ark one was a little funny, in my opinion, only because of seeing Seth Rogen going crazy for like little dogs, and like they eventually resort to cannibalism. I thought that was overall a funny joke.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm
his reasoning worked.
Please, I don't know.
Maybe you just like don't have a sense of humor.
I guess so.
Lesbians remind me of Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah, I'm too caught up in that Triangle of Sadness that I don't find anything funny. I don't know. That's the thing. Like, but I watch a lot of old films, as people may or may not know on this podcast.
You don't
I laugh
say.
out loud while I'm watching a 30s or 40s film. Like, I actually feel like I'm I'm a good watcher of comedy when it comes to all decades, all genres. So I was actually kind of excited for this because I'm like, oh, a sequel to Mel Brooks, who I actually find, despite, being a perv, pretty funny. I guess that standard really let me down because I just didn't see any hint of Mel Brooks, who apparently is one of the writers. I mean, like, every episode is credited to 10 people, which is probably part of the problem. But there's almost too many people involved with their own types of humor, and I don't know. But I also thought that the way that it was made was just very basic. And this comes down to why I think it was overall kind of bad, is because it was just classic shot, reverse shot, medium here, wide here. And it just wasn't interestingly done, or it just felt flat. The whole thing felt incredibly flat to me. It didn't really have a tone that I felt like I could connect with. And it didn't have anything unique or memorable about it. And at the end of the day, when there's so much content out there, like Rolando said earlier, there's so much, like, you kind of do have to be more than just competent. Yeah.
I think you're 1,000,000% correct as for reasons why this show isn't necessarily good. I just happen to think maybe you are being a little too hard on it because, and I don't know, like, do you watch TikToks and laugh still?
I do.
What kind of humor are you looking at? Like, what is TikTok feeding you? I'm just curious.
My gosh, I get fed a lot of TikTok. I mean, I like things that kind of subvert my expectations. How about that? Right?
Okay.
Things that take a left turn and, like, oh, you weren't expecting that, I find to be very funny.
I'm very lowbrow comedy. I'm literally like little children slipping and falling and crying. Like, that is.
But I like those things too. I think Impractical Jokers are hilarious.
That's right. Impractical Jokers. Why didn't any one of them show up?
Yeah. Why? Like, they had that whole, like, Jackass skit with Rasputin. Why couldn't they do like a Richard Nixon going to talk? But the Impractical Jokers are actually in his ear, and it's like, all right, now say this. Now say I'm not a crook, and they're like laughing. Like, that could have been clever.
Yeah, something like that. Look, I don't disagree with you. I don't know if the show will I continue the show? Probably not. Did I hate the show? Absolutely not. I actually thought the show, there was some level of charm there. Is it my favorite show? No, but it's similar to, like, okay, here's another question. Do you watch current Saturday Night Live skits?
Sometimes.
Like, you watch them on YouTube, like you'll watch whatever people have been talking about? Because that's what I tend to do. Like, I won't watch the full episode, but I'll watch something on YouTube if someone has been talking a lot about it.
Yeah, I saw some of the Pedro Pascal ones. I actually saw the one on Jeopardy where he knew all the old movie things, but he knew nothing about today. I thought that was
a good
funny.
skit.
Yeah.
That was a good skit. Pedro Pascal had a pretty strong episode. Oh, did you see the one where he was in drag as his mom?
Yes, I did see that one.
Really good.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good skit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where I was going with this other than, like, I don't know, the sensibilities. Because I think the other thing that this show tried to do is, some of those criticisms you were talking about from the previous one, the rapiness. And I think, let's be real, there was a level of, like, low-key racism present in the original one too, especially with just how we use Gregory Peck. Who it was his first film.
Gregory Hines. Gregory Peck was it?
I was close.
Yeah, kind of like the humor about the objectification of a black male body. Yeah.
And who's Gregory Peck?
Gregory Peck played Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird.
He's not the tap dancer. That's Gregory Hines.
That's Gregory Hines. Yeah, Gregory Hines, who was later in Will and Grace, and
that's where I really know him from.
Yeah,
truly.
I know.
Yeah, but I mean, this one obviously, I feel like, especially with someone like Wanda Sykes, she gets pretty political pretty quick, right? Like, I'd be lying if I said you couldn't tell there was a little bit slight political agenda here in this one, more so that was more present than or I don't, that's not the right word. I don't want to say it's like, no, it wasn't politically, there was no political agenda per se, but some of those jokes did veer a little bit more political, right? Not necessarily that I'm not saying that they had a slant, because I think they were like, they targeted both sides, but, like, there was a clear they made fun of the current politics of the time and stuff. And maybe that's also part of the reason why it appealed to me, right? I do love the drama of current American politics. So maybe that's what spoke to me.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I do find a lot of things funny nowadays. So I don't know. This just didn't work for me. Yeah. I mean, I even watched it with my mom, and my mom didn't find anything funny.
Wow.
So
I don't know if I could watch this with my mom because I don't think she would get it. But she doesn't talk much. English is not her first language, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, I for me, it definitely was like, oh, I expect this to be funny. So when it wasn't, it became a massive disappointment. So
I think I told you last week, I showed my mom that movie with J-Lo and Jennifer Coolidge.
Yes.
We both liked it. Like, I don't know why that movie was getting such hard negative reviews, because I thought that movie was just borderline good. I will say it right here.
Actually, let's take a film that we've covered that you say is all in out a bad film. Can you think of one?
Dr. Dolittle.
I would agree with that. And just remind the viewer why it's bad.
Why was Dr. Dolittle bad? I think just bad. The story made no sense.
Yeah.
The performances kind of were just like lackluster.
Yeah, everything I was kind of going for it didn't succeed in. So there was no, like, it wasn't very funny. It wasn't like very enthralling, or the story, you know, you couldn't really connect with it.
Like, it was worse than the original one,
which was also pretty bad.
Right. But at least the original one had like kind of a message behind it. I couldn't agree with that message, right? It was like pushing veganism, basically. That was the agenda of that film.
Yeah.
And at least Dr. Dolittle with Eddie Murphy had Eddie Murphy in it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Dolittle, yeah. And again, forgettable. We can't even remember most of the movies.
Oh, that's not true. I mean, I do remember so much of it because I just disliked it. So maybe not. No, it's a bad movie. It's one of the...
I can't remember the plot. I remember the opening credits were beautiful, and then the rest of the film sucked.
I do remember the opening credits being beautiful, yeah.
Yeah.
Does that save it? So. Does that push it onto the...
Yeah, but like, you liked Jurassic World, the new one, right? Which a lot of people panned.
Hang on. Like is a strong word. I know what I was paying for, and that's what they delivered, and that's why I'm not upset. We covered that with Mackenzie. We both felt the same way. It's just like, yo, they gave us the big dinosaurs and some big climactic scenes. That's what we wanted. They gave it to me. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes Hollywood just has to deliver on what they're promising. If I'm watching a Jurassic World movie, they need to give me the big dinosaurs. They need to give me the big action sequences. They did.
You know, I think sometimes
great example.
People.
Great call, because I think you're right. That movie got panned a lot.
Did,
on my TikTok feed, the movie critics that I follow, like, they are constantly trashing that movie. I'm just like, I disagree with all of you guys. Just like, because they also trashed. They were the ones trashing that J-Lo movie with Jennifer Coolidge. I'm just like, yo, where is this hate coming from? J-Lo is phenomenal in it. Give her Oscar.
I think people just like to hop on bandwagons sometimes. Like, oh, everyone says it's bad. This will get more views if I say it's bad. So
I should start doing the opposite. Be like, yo, here's why this movie is good.
Start with Showgirls and watch Showgirls.
I'm pretty sure that's been talked ad nauseum.
Maybe not ad nauseum, because I don't think the public opinion has changed on it. I think most people still think of it as a bad film, but
it's hard to change public opinion, you know?
It is. Well, what is your public opinion, guys, on the history of the world, part 1 and 2? Have you seen it? What do you think? Also, we had like something that we wanted you guys to chime in earlier in the episode. Forgot what it was, but if you remember, reach out to us and let us know your thoughts.
Oh, if people are as
open to older films or something,
as me, that's it. That's what it was.
You're not critical. You're just closed to it.
That's it. Closed-minded.
Because most of the time when you watch them, you actually do enjoy them. It's not like you hate all of them.
Don't do that.
It's
not
true.
Most of the time. It's like
I'm going to go back.
A flip of the coin.
Sometimes you hate on it just because it's old.
And I think that's justified.
That's true. It's like is it old and a musical? Hate it.
Oh
Hate
yeah,
it.
if it's musicals,
Yes.
forget it. I'm out, tapped out.
Yeah, he's tapped out like James Cagney tapped out in Yankee Doodle Dandy. So ways that you can reach us: remakes, reboots, and revivals at gmail.com. Just remakes, reboots, revivals. You can get our handle on Instagram at Remakes, Reboots, Revivals, on Twitter at Remakes Podcast. You can search for us on Facebook and YouTube by searching Remakes, Reboots, Revivals, and we'll come up. And if you can, go to wherever you're listening to your podcast, give us a little rating, and if you can, give us a review. We would so appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you want to listen to older episodes, which I highly recommend, be sure to visit our website, www.remakesrebootsrevivals.com.
Yes, only like 50 episodes are available on all of your podcasting platforms.
Right.
So we reference older episodes like Dr. Dolittle. You can find that on our website.
Mm-hmm. Should they listen to that one?
I mean, unless you want to hear us, sometimes we just rip shit to shreds, guys.
That movie,
So-
two out of the 3 movies got ripped to shreds in that one.
Yeah.
Like,
I highly recommend you guys go back and listen to one of my all-time favorites, A Star Is Born. And you can hear Rolando praise a 30s film in that. So,
yeah.
and prove what he just said 2 minutes ago wrong.
I just said not all, like not most. It's just, I would say 50%.
Yes, that's kind of what I said. I said most of the time you do like it. You just
50% is not
change
most.
it to
That is half.
50%. He just doesn't want to admit it, guys.
I'm a half
He's a
glass
hater.
empty kind of guy.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, we need you to know that we will be taking a little break. So come back in the next
Thank
3 to
God.
4 weeks when we, because Rolando just will miss it because this is such a joyous experience for him. But come back in the next 3 to 4 weeks when we will be covering Super Mario Brothers. I think that will
Is
be
that
the
what
week
we're
of.
coming in with?
Yes, we will be coming back with the Super Mario Brothers film, and we will be comparing it to the 90s cult classic with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo.
I'll tell you guys right off the bat, if you're still listening. I think that movie is one of those movies that gets panned, and when I have seen it so many times, I'm just like, why do we hate on this movie?
I
Like,
love that movie.
Yeah, this movie, this movie is good. Like, this movie is good. That's it. Period. That's my argument going into this one.
Yeah, it's because, all right, we'll get into it next time.
Right.
We will see you guys in a couple of weeks in April to cover Super Mario Brothers. Until then, stay unoriginal.